Cloudy and 13 kilowatts. I'll take it. Can only confirm this if we go outside, right? Okay, I've got some clouds there and super sunny part over here. The sun is almost straight above us now. Well, we are only a few days away from the summer solstice, the longest day of the year. And then it all goes down again. The days are getting shorter, just a tiny bit every day. And your days in the Northern Hemisphere will get longer. So you are over the hump, so to speak, and getting more and more sunshine. Not every day. Well, it will take a couple of months, right? Well guys, welcome back to the Off-Grid Garage in sunny hot Australia here. It is the Christmas edition. We are only a few days away from the big day. Yeah guys, and in today's video we want to have a look at the newest firmware for the JK-Inverter BMS, which is version 19.21. Yes, it just came out a few days ago. I have tested it on one BMS here and I'm not impressed, I must say. I don't like it. So I'm really thinking about going back to version 19.18. But let me show you what's going on. Oh yeah, for people who are interested, we've got close to 150 amps outside. Yeah, the IBMS has limited the charge voltage limit to 54.2 volts. So we are not going over 63 amps here with this second number. Yeah, all these batteries are only connected with 63 amps back to the main system. Yeah, and the IBMS and Home Assistant are taking care of it and reducing the charge limit accordingly, so we are not going over 63 amps. Now it's getting cloudy again, as promised. So in this whole stack of batteries here we have several JK BMS. Everything which is connected with the blue network cable there is JK-Inverter BMS, so 8 batteries all together in parallel. And oh yeah, the top batteries, so this one and the MB56 here have JK-Inverter BMS version 19. Yeah, all the other batteries here, they have version 14 and 15. But thankfully all these BMS are talking to each other, are compatible and sharing the data. And I have upgraded only one so far to have a look what's going on and what this new feature is all about. And let me tell you, I don't like it. Okay, so at the moment version 19.13 or anything below version 19.21. Yeah, you get the main screen here with the voltage of this battery, the current for this battery, capacity for this battery, remaining capacity, min-max cell voltage, temperature, the power, if there's any alarm, and if the charge and discharge MOSFETs are on or off. Yeah, under packs we can see this one pack here and gives us all the details about the cell voltages, state of charge, and the voltage delta up here, the temperature. Yeah, and then here under settings we can set the RS485 and CAN protocol for the communication board down here. So we don't need this because this is a slave BMS. So this is what we have with version 19.13 or 19.15, 18, whatever was in between. Okay, let's upgrade this one to version 19.21. Okay, for that to happen, I have to disconnect all the communication to all the other batteries, plug in a network cable. We can leave the dip switches as they are. They are sitting on 4 plus 1. And obviously this network cable plugs into an RS485 to USB adapter into your computer. Nothing new here. Okay, we then start the JK BMS monitor software. We set device ID 5 as per dip switches for this BMS and click on connect. And this should connect to the single BMS now. Yep, there we've got all the data, right? So we go under about, we've got 19.13 up here, and this is a 300 amp BMS. So we can leave this side open, so we've got all the data here. So click on the 3 dots, upload Firmware version 19, yeah, 13, then there was 18, and now there's 21. Have you also seen that we have now 6 firmware versions in here? Yeah, The new one is a 100 amp BMS with a 2 amp active balancer. Yeah, so far we only had a 100 amp BMS with a 1 amp active balancer, but this is now with a 2 amp active balancer. I don't know why we need all these BMSs at all here. Yeah, we've got two 100 amp BMS, one with a 1 amp and one with a 2 amp active balancer. Why? Then we've got a 150 amp, then we've got 250 amp BMS with a 1 amp with a 2 amp active balancer. Why? And then we've got a 200 amp BMS and a 300 amp BMS now. If I would be Jikong, I would probably compress this all to a 100 amp BMS for smaller batteries and a 300 amp BMS for the MB56 batteries, and that's it. All the other ones, obsolete. And I would make them both with a 2 amp active balancer. So reduce the portfolio what you have, but there might be markets for all these BMSs, I don't know. Anyway, we want to continue. So 300 amp BMS, that's this one here. We go to open. And we've got the version 19.21. It's from the 4th of December. And we start updating. So in the meanwhile, we want to have a look in the log files. So first, optimize the current calculation method to improve accuracy. Yes, more accurate current means more accurate state of charge. So I've asked Jikong, what does it mean? What have you changed? What has changed in the calculation? Why is the accuracy now improved? And the answer was nothing. They didn't come back to me at all with any explanation of what this means. So I have no information, no details whatsoever, nothing, zero, nada. So at the moment, these are only words, but we don't have any proof that something has improved or what has improved, what have they changed, no idea. Okay, second, optimize the parallel logic of the PB series protection board so that the slave packs can also monitor all the information of the batteries. So until now, only the master BMS could see all the slave packs, yeah? But now with this update, the slaves can see all the other slaves and the master as well. So it doesn't matter on which display you go in your whole setup, you can get all the information of all the batteries. That's good, right? That's a good update. That's a good feature. All right. And then third, fix some known bugs. What does that mean? What has been fixed? Why don't you tell anyone what you have fixed? What was the bug? We as the community, we as the consumers, as the customers, we want to know what kind of bugs have you fixed, yeah? So I really need to push them harder to make sure all the details are in these log files here, not just we have fixed something. Okay, so far this update sounds actually pretty good, right? We've got a more accurate current now, and the slave BMSs can see all the other connected batteries in the stack as well. So, good. All right, so we are back here at the MB56 battery. We can still see the pack voltage, the current going into this battery, and the capacity and the remaining capacity and all the other stuff. So nothing has changed because we have still plugged in the computer. So if we remove this one and plug in, hey, go back to group, yeah, watch the capacity, the voltage and the amps when I plug in these two cables to all the other batteries. So there you can see it. It now shows, it now shows the total capacity of all 8 connected batteries with the JK BMS, the remaining capacity, the overall current going into all of these batteries as a sum, and the pack voltage. This is an average voltage of all the batteries together. So if I click on packs now, I can see all the connected batteries. Yeah, I can go to the master and see, oh, the master has 280 ampere hours. It's on 63%, what the BMS thinks it is, and voltage difference, all the cell voltages, everything good, right? And I can do the same with the Jikong version 1 down there. Yeah, it's a 280 as well. 0 voltage difference, so all the cells are on the same voltage. Is that true? Wow. Now we've got only 0.7 amps. We've got only 0.7 amps going into this battery at the moment, so there's not much going on. This is an this is the version 14 of the JK BMS. 4.4 amps. 1 millivolt deviation we have, 90% it shows, which is probably pretty accurate. The version 14 of the JK-Inverter BMS is the most accurate in all these batteries I have here in parallel. They all have the JK-Inverter BMS version 14, 15 and 19. And the version 14, the oldest one, is the most accurate. Yeah, so that is actually pretty good that you can see all the other connected batteries as well. Settings has not changed. The protocols you can set if this one is your master and is connected to a inverter. So, but now I want to see how much current is actually going into this battery here and what is the pack voltage of this battery. So if I go back to packs and go to number 5, which we are, I can see the current here, 10 amps going into this battery. But what is the voltage of this battery pack? It doesn't tell me. I can't see it anymore. Yeah, usually this overview gives you the information about just this battery, but now it shows the stack, average, overview, sum, everything in between. Yeah, we are charging here with 2.1 kilowatts, not in this battery, but overall in all these batteries, which are connected with a blue cable. So an individual detail of this screen here is not available anymore. And this is the same here on the master. This always gives you an overview over all connected batteries. I'm not able to see the voltage of this one battery pack anymore. You can only see that if you disconnect both communication lines to all the other batteries, and then your capacity will go down. There it goes. And it also shows you now the pack voltage of this battery and the current going into this battery. With this BMS here, this is on version 19.21 already. It has this matrix display here. So if I want to see what voltage do I have in this battery here, I usually go to group and go to enter. And with the older firmware on this BMS, I saw the pack voltage, the current going into here, the state of charge for this battery, the capacity and all the details for just this one battery. But now it shows me the group information here as well. Yeah, 11.2 amps. Yeah, 11 amps over here as well. So I'm actually losing the information just for this one battery pack, which I want if I press on this display, what you would expect. So I'm not sure if this update is actually good or bad. Yeah, it shows me remaining 2000 ampere hours. This is a 100 ampere hour battery. Come on. How much is left in here? What is the state of charge of this battery? Of this one battery? So you can go into pack here as well. Enter. And we go to the master, for example. Yeah, 00, enter. And it gives you the cell voltages. To 8, 12, 16, and then it starts again. So this is all you can see from the master, only the single cell voltages. I cannot see what state of charge this battery is on or what the voltage is, the amps going into this one pack here. This is all very limited information you can get from the slave batteries. No information about this battery anymore. It's gone. So yeah, can we say anything about the improved accuracy of the current measurement now? Obviously not, because we don't have any information whatsoever. Okay, and then I want to go back a few firmware updates again and show you a feature which probably got a bit unnoticed. If you go back all the way here to end of July, version 19.11, yeah? So it says here, the activation button can be used to adapt to both the self-locking button and the reset button simultaneously. What the heck does that mean? So it is about the power button in the JK-Inverter BMS, which is usually a button. It is not a switch, it is a button. So it's only a push button. It closes the contact only as long as you push the button. So to turn off the BMS, we have to hold the button for a few seconds. And the BMS turns off. Yeah. To turn it on, one push and it turns back on. This is what all the JK BMSs always had. In contrast to the Pace BMS, for example, because they have a physical switch, yeah? This switch actually locks in and stays locked in, and the contact is permanently closed. It's a switch, not a push button. But here, JK, always push button. So now Jikong explained that quite a few customers have actually requested to use a switch, like in the Pace BMS, a physical mechanical switch, to operate the BMS. They don't want a push button, they want a switch. And with this latest update 19.15, you can actually change the behavior of your button now from a push button to a switch. So you turn off the BMS. Yeah. And now when you turn it back on, you keep holding the button down for 15 seconds or longer. So push and hold. The BMS turns on. And now after 15 seconds, the software has now realized it is a switch. Have you counted the seconds? I don't know. I need to keep these contacts here closed. If I open my switch, look at this, BMS turns off, yeah? To turn it back on, close the switch, push and hold in this case, because I don't have a switch. Yeah, it's a permanent switch now, it's not a push button anymore. And then open the switch again, and the BMS turns off. And obviously if you do this, you lose the ability to toggle the Bluetooth, yeah? With a normal push button function, you can toggle the Bluetooth by double clicking the power button. One beep is off, 2 beeps, Bluetooth back on. Well, if you have a switch, you obviously can't do this anymore. There's no double click with a switch. And to go back from a switch to a push button function, you turn off the BMS and hold the power button and then release it, and the BMS realizes, oh, you're back on a push button. And now we've got the Bluetooth toggle back as well. So you can totally change the behavior now from a push button to a switch. I have no practical explanation why this could be beneficial. So with the other 2 points in this firmware update, here in the parallel mode, the current request margin has increased from 5 to 20%, and the overcurrent protection is increased by 2% to meet the requirements of some aging cabinets. Okay, the explanation and translation is actually fairly simple. Number 2 is actually talking about the charge current limit, or CCL. This is the maximum charge current the BMS requests from your inverter to charge the battery. And number 3 is the opposite. It is about the DCL, the discharge current limit. So the BMS tells your inverter what the maximum discharge current for the battery is at the moment. Okay, and both can be set in the JK BMS with a continued charge current and a continued discharge current, yeah? Both of them are sitting on 50 amps. In fact, I've set all my BMSs to 50 amps of charge and discharge current here, because this is all monitored and set by the iBMS system. So I'm not using these parameters anymore. But at the moment, I have connected the master BMS to the servo GX just to demonstrate what this actually means here, and set this one here to say to 100. 100 amps, 100%, yeah, it's easier to calculate. And the same here for the discharge current, we set this one to 100 amps as well. So the BMS would actually now report these 100 amps charging and discharging to your inverter, yeah? And until this update, there was a 5% margin. That means when we set 100 amps in the BMS, it would report only 95 amps to the inverter. So there was a bit of a gap, allowing some surges, yeah? You don't want to trigger your overcurrent protection all the time, or your discharge current protection, just because you're hitting these 100 amps. So it was a bit of a reduced information going to your inverter, which is fine, yeah? And this has now changed. So for the charge current, they changed it from 5% to 20%. And we have set 100 amp in the BMS, but the maximum it requests from your inverter is only 80 amps. So keep this in mind, whatever you set in the JK version 19 inverter BMS, only 80% of that will be requested from your inverter. So, and the same for the discharge current, which sits on 85%. So there is a 15% reduction from the set 100 amp discharge current in the BMS. This is again the physical boundary before the BMS turns off your battery, disconnects the MOSFETs, but it tells the inverter, hey, you can only discharge me with 85 amps. Even here, a bit of a margin if you start a pump or have a surge or something. So I don't know exactly what they mean by increase by 2%, because we now have 15% less what is reported to the inverter. And I'm not sure if we had like 13% before that. The only thing I can remember when I have tested it the last time, it was 5% for charging and 5% for the discharge. But now we've got 20% for charging and 15% for discharging. So keep this in mind. Yeah, this was a bit of a sneaky update of features here in version 19.11. Yeah, and then pretty much there was not much going on anymore here. Version 19.13. The only really interesting stuff is that we are upgrading to the Bluetooth Communication Protocol version 2 and also the support for the LCD, for the pixel display as I call it, as you have just seen here. This was added so you can use this display with version 19.13. There was a bit of a GrowBot CAN protocol update and they added support for the lean bus, which is quite interesting as well. But no further information about this either. And here we have the Guru Watt CAN protocol optimization, presumably another inverter. And they added the state of charge above trigger to the dry contact. So this is something you can select now in the settings here. Dry contacts value. There should be like a... Oh no, it is not in here because this is still version 19.13 and not 19.18. But so far we had only a low state of charge setting here for the dry contacts. And now we have an option for a high state of charge as well. But version 19.18 or later. And guess what? Still Jikong has not managed to put all this information on their website to download for everyone. They're still sending me this stuff. I said, I don't want it. Put it on in your download section of your website. Here we are, almost 2026. And you are still downloading the firmware and Android app and computer software from the Google Drive of a YouTuber. Okay, my friends, I think so far there's some little update here about the latest firmware updates for the version 19 of the JK-Inverter BMS. I'm not sure if this latest update is actually a benefit, or I personally don't like it because when I press on this button here, I want to see the details of this battery. Yeah, it is nice they have included all the other packs then. Why has this disappeared? Ah, yeah, because I've disconnected all the communication cables here and it cannot communicate to the master anymore. Yeah, here they come again. All the other batteries are coming in. So they either have to include all the individual data of this battery as well in this setup, or it gives you less information than the older version 19.18. So, but leave your comments down below. Do you like this update? Do you like to have all the information on each of the displays and lose the ability to check quickly on the voltage of the individual battery? But hey, as always, I link all the information down below and you can download the version 19.21 from my Google Drive as well, unfortunately. There's also a new app version for the Android phones out, 5.10. I have tested it and I have deleted it again because it has some issues with the screen. Sometimes if the keyboard swipes down, it leaves a gap and you can't see the top of the page anymore. I've reported this already to Jikong. I'm not sure why they are not testing this stuff before they push it out to the public. So at the moment I would stay at 5.8, but maybe 5.10 works with your phone. I don't know. Unfortunately, these are all the limited information we are working with when we deal with Jikong. So as you can hear, sometimes it is really frustrating working with them because you need to pull single hairs to get the information and it takes forever. And then you read these log files here and it says fix some known bugs. Well guys, on a positive note, you have a wonderful Christmas. If you don't celebrate Christmas, enjoy your days off. If you don't have any days off, well, I guess we have to thank you for your service. So, but hopefully you have a wonderful time with your family. And we will see us again right after Christmas because the family is leaving here at the second Christmas day, as we say. And I'll be right back after Christmas with a very interesting video for you. So as always, thank you very much for watching. Thanks for all your amazing and great support here on the channel. Welcome to all the new channel members, over 118,374 subscribers. Thank you very, very much for all your support. It really keeps the channel independent and I don't need to take on any sponsorships. You don't want to see any advertising about NordVPN or AG1 here, right? Okay, my friends, until the next video, you stay charged, have a great Christmas, and thanks again for watching. See you then. Bye-bye.